Hey everyone and welcome. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here for this explainer. Today, we're diving into G9, Biology, Unit 2, Lesson 2, Water and Solutions, and the Building Blocks of Life. We actually have a truly fascinating objective today. We're going to unpack the fundamental chemical recipe for life itself. We'll be exploring the environments where life happens and the highly specific molecular ingredients that make every single living cell possible. Okay, let's dive into this and map out our journey. Here's the agenda. 1. Water and its solutions. 2. Carbon, the life builder. 3. Carbs, lipids, and energy. 4. Proteins and nucleic acids. 5. Checks and misconceptions. And we'll finish up with 6. A recap of required concepts. Section 1. Water and its solutions. So before we can even think about building a living cell, we need the right environment, right? And in biology, that environment is almost always water. To really understand water, you just need to wrap your head around one main concept: polarity. A water molecule is just one oxygen atom covalently bonded to two hydrogen atoms. But oxygen is incredibly electron-loving. It kind of hogs the shared electrons. This creates an uneven distribution of electron density. The oxygen side gets a partial negative charge, and the hydrogen side gets a partial positive charge, making it a polar molecule. It essentially acts like a microscopic magnet. And this polarity, it is a total game changer. Because water molecules act like little magnets, the positive hydrogen of one molecule sticks to the negative oxygen of another. We call this a hydrogen bond. This bonding gives water some incredibly unique properties. It's literally the reason why ice floats. The bonds hold the molecules further apart in a solid state. It also creates strong surface tension, gives water a high heat of vaporization, and makes it the nearly universal solvent. Plus, it causes the hydrophobic effect, where water basically squeezes nonpolar or water-fearing molecules together to form the boundaries of living cells. Now, because water is such an incredible solvent, it creates different biological environments, which brings us to the pH scale. In a watery solution, some molecules release hydrogen ions, or H+. We call those acids, and they land on the lower end of the scale, from 1 to 6. Other molecules actually accept those H+ ions, those are bases, sitting from 8 to 14. Right in the middle at 7.0 is neutral. The pH of a solution completely changes how biological molecules behave, which perfectly sets up our next topic. Section 2, Carbon, the life builder. All right, we have our watery environment, so now we need our structural foundation. Whenever you hear that life on Earth is carbon-based, well, it all boils down to a single, very important number, 4. A carbon atom has exactly 4 electrons in its outer shell. This means it can form 4 incredibly strong covalent bonds with other atoms, or even with other carbon atoms. Because of this magic number 4, carbon can form long chains, complex branching structures, and interlocking rings. It is, for all intents and purposes, the ultimate molecular tinker toy. Section 3, Carbs, lipids, and energy. Now that we have our carbon foundation in place, let's look at the actual structures built from it, starting with carbohydrates, our primary energy source. They have a very specific 1 to 2 to 1 ratio of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen atoms. Think of carbohydrates like Lego bricks. A single, simple sugar brick is a monosaccharide, like glucose. Snap 2 together and you get a disaccharide, like your everyday table sugar. Snap thousands of them together and you create complex polysaccharides. Plants store these as starch, we humans store them as glycogen, and plants even use them for tough structural support called cellulose. Next up, we have lipids, which include things like fats, oils, and waxes. Lipids are strictly hydrophobic. They absolutely fear water. Comparing saturated and unsaturated fats perfectly shows us how molecular structure dictates a physical state. Saturated fats only have single bonds in their carbon chains. This allows them to pack really tightly together, making them solid at room temperature. Think of a stick of butter. Unsaturated fats, on the other hand, have double bonds in their carbon chains. This physically creates a bend, or a kink. Because they're kinked, they just can't pack tightly, so they stay liquid at room temperature, like olive oil. Section 4, Proteins and Nucleic Acids. Okay, let's level up and see how this builds into the truly complex machinery of the cell. Proteins are the ultimate multitaskers. They provide structure, they act as enzymes, they function as hormones. They're built from 20 different amino acids, and how they get their final shape is just fascinating, because in biology, shape dictates function. It happens in 4 distinct steps. First is primary, the exact, unique sequence of the amino acids. Second is secondary, twisting into an alpha helix or folding into a beta-pleated sheet. Third is tertiary, complex 3D folding based on amino acid interactions. And finally, quaternary, where multiple folded subunits combine into one massive protein. To show you just how vital that very first step, the primary sequence, really is, let's look at the analysis of sickle cell anemia. Hemoglobin is a complex protein made of about 600 amino acids. If just one single amino acid out of those 600 is incorrect, the entire protein folds wrong. It changes the normally round red blood cell into a rigid crescent, or sickle shape, causing severe health problems. Literally, one structural change at the molecular level completely alters the entire cellular function. But wait, how does the cell actually know the exact sequence of amino acids to build that protein in the first place? Well, that brings us to nucleic acids, the master blueprints. The building block, or monomer here, is the nucleotide, which has three parts: a base, a sugar, and a phosphate. These nucleotides link together to form DNA, the famous double helix that carries your hereditary genetic information, and RNA, which is usually single-stranded and helps translate that DNA blueprint into the actual working proteins we just talked about. Section 5, Checks and Misconceptions. We've covered a ton of ground, from the chemistry of water all the way up to DNA. Let's make sure we are synthesizing this material correctly. Here is a super common misconception. Are all fats and carbohydrates bad for you? Diet culture often screams yes, but biology says absolutely not. Essential fatty acids like the omega-3s found in fish are crucial polyunsaturated fats required for brain function. And complex carbohydrates are the primary way our bodies get the energy to do, well, literally everything. It's all about moderation and specific chemical structures, not completely eliminating vital macromolecules. Let's zoom out for a second to the foundation of biology, cell theory. Cell theory tells us that all living things are made of cells, that cells are the basic unit of life, and that new cells come from existing cells. We divide these units into simpler prokaryotic cells, like bacteria, and much more complex eukaryotic cells, like the ones in you and me. But here is the amazing unifying concept: regardless of whether a cell is prokaryotic or eukaryotic, its entire physical structure and metabolic function rely entirely on the exact same four macromolecules we just outlined. The complexity differs, for sure, but the building blocks are identical. All right, quick formative check for you based on what we've covered today. Which of the four biological macromolecules we discussed dictates your genetic blueprint? Take a second to think about it.
All right, quick formative check for you based on what we've covered today. Which of the 4 biological macromolecules we discussed dictates your genetic blueprint? Take a second to think about it. Okay, so the crucial point is that nucleic acids, specifically DNA, are the molecules holding those genetic instructions. If you got that, you are right on track.
Section 6. Recap of required concepts. Let's bring it all home with a quick recap. Thanks to water's polar solvent properties and carbon's awesome ability to form 4 bonds, we get these massive, essential molecules. Carbohydrates are built from monosaccharides for energy, lipids are built from fatty acids and glycerol for long-term energy and insulation, proteins are built from amino acids to basically run the entire cellular machine, and nucleic acids are built from nucleotides to store all the genetic blueprints. Which leaves us with this final crazy thought. As we just saw, a simple bacteria and a highly complex human being are built from the exact same 4 chemical ingredients. So if the Lego bricks are identical, what makes the final living structures so completely different? It all comes down to the precise instructions hidden inside those specific nucleic acids and how they arrange the proteins. It's an absolutely incredible system, and I hope this explainer has helped you see the brilliant structural logic behind the chemical recipe of life. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.